In the quiet dimness of St. Helena's private hospital, where soft beeping monitors hummed like a mechanical heartbeat, a young nurse named Ilara moved with a gentleness that seemed to brighten even the coldest corners of the ward, and tonight, as she pushed open the door to room 407, she carried with her the same calm warmth she gave every night to the men who lay still as stone in the bed before her, a man the world once called a ruthless millionaire, a financial prodigy, a self-made legend. But here, stripped of suits, titles, and power, he was simply Adrian Hale, a patient lost in a deep coma with no sign of returning. Ilara stepped closer, her eyes softening as she looked at him, his strong jawline, his sculpted chest rising only slightly with the rhythm of the ventilator, the faint, stubborn signs of life that still clung to him even after the accident that had shattered not only his spine and ribs but the empire he had built. Most nurses avoided his room because the pressure of treating someone so famously wealthy and influential made them nervous, but Ilara saw none of that. She saw a man who needed care, dignity, and humanity, so she followed the same routine she had for the last 11 weeks. She warmed the basin of water, checked the temperature with her wrist, and began gently bathing him, wiping his arms, shoulders, and neck with a tenderness that came from a place she rarely spoke of, for she had lost her own father years ago in a coma she could not tend to, and every night she cared for Adrian felt like she was healing an old wound inside her. As she moved the towel along his skin, she whispered soft encouragements, not knowing if he could hear, but research had shown coma patients often retain some sense of sound, and Ilara believed, no, she hoped, that her voice reached him somewhere in that deep darkness he was trapped in. She told him about the weather, about the cafeteria running out of apple pie again, about the elderly woman down the hall who had finally woken from her stroke, and sometimes, late at night when she felt no one could hear, she told him stories about her own dreams of becoming a head nurse, traveling the world, helping people who had no one, dreams she shared with a stranger who couldn't judge, couldn't interrupt, couldn't leave. And in some strange way, she felt comforted by his presence, like the silence between them was a safe place. But tonight, something felt different. The air seemed charged, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Ilara dipped the towel again and squeezed out the water, brushing it over his forehead, and just for a moment she thought she saw his eyelids flutter. She froze, leaning closer, her hand hovering midair, but nothing happened. Maybe I'm imagining things, she whispered to herself with a sad smile, continuing her careful work, unaware that deep inside Adrian's mind, a faint spark flickered. She didn't know that he did hear her stories, her voice nudging at the edges of his unconscious like a lighthouse guiding a lost ship through fog. She didn't know that her nightly care had become an anchor for him, a reason for his broken, drifting mind to keep fighting. Hours passed like minutes as she bathed him, changed his sheets, checked his vitals, and massaged his stiff hands, all while humming a soft melody her mother used to sing. Just as she lifted his arm to adjust the blanket, a sudden jolt ran through his fingers, subtle but real. Ilara gasped and looked at his face again. This time, no flutter, no twitch, until his lips parted ever so slightly, drawing in a deeper breath than before. Her heart hammered in her chest as she stepped back, one hand over her mouth. Adrian. Can you hear me? Her voice trembled, she had never used his first name out loud. The monitors beeped faster. His eyelids twitched again, harder, as if he were fighting to open them. Ilara pressed the emergency button, calling for the doctor, but before they could arrive, something miraculous happened right before her eyes. Adrian's eyes slowly opened, revealing a dazed, glassy haze that gradually sharpened into focus as he looked directly at the young nurse who had bathed him with the devotion of someone who believed he would return even when the world had given up. His lips moved, struggling, dry and cracked, forming the faintest whisper, "You stayed." Tears filled Ilara's eyes instantly. She grabbed his hand gently but firmly. Yes, Adrian. Every night. You're safe. When the doctors rushed in, shocked and scrambling to assess him, Adrian didn't look away from her, his gaze locked onto hers with a depth that made her chest tighten. In a voice strained but determined, he murmured, "I heard you, every word." The entire medical team froze. The doctor blinked in disbelief, asking him to repeat himself, but Adrian didn't. Instead, he continued staring at Ilara as if she were the light that pulled him back from the edge of oblivion. As days passed, Adrian regained strength, and the truth about what he experienced in the coma slowly unfolded. He told Ilara that he often found himself drifting through darkness, lost, cold, and directionless, but he kept hearing a woman, her, talking to him, bathing him, comforting him, telling him about life outside the veil of unconsciousness. "Your voice, it was like a thread," he said one afternoon when she brought him water, and I held onto it so I wouldn't fall apart. She blushed, unsure how to respond, but inside her heart, something warm bloomed. As he recovered, he learned from the hospital staff that she had been the only nurse who volunteered to work in his room every night, even though she was not assigned to him. It stunned him, humbled him, and for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar, gratitude that wasn't tied to business, money, or power. Weeks later, when he was finally able to walk again, he surprised the entire staff by requesting to speak at a small gathering in the lobby, where he publicly thanked Alara for saving not only his body but also his spirit. He donated a large sum to the hospital to build a new wing named after her late father, something she never expected and could barely comprehend. But more than that, after the ceremony, he pulled her aside, his voice softer than she had ever heard it, and asked if she would have coffee with him, not as patient and nurse, but as two people whose lives had collided in the strangest, most miraculous way. Her breath caught, and after a moment of stunned silence, she smiled and said yes, because she too had felt something growing between them, something gentle, unlikely, and extraordinary. And so, what began as a quiet nightly ritual of care transformed into a story of healing, connection, and fate, proof that even in the darkest of places, miracles can bloom when two hearts find each other in the quietest moments. If you enjoyed this emotional and heart-touching story, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on notifications, because we have many more powerful stories coming that you won't want to miss.